Hello and welcome, Gunpla fans of YouTube. Getting close to the end of Transformation May here, and I've got one more kit, possibly another one after this, but this was kind of the one I kind of wanted to kind of end the month on, and he's a pretty big guy here, and you don't really see him around too often. You usually see his big upgraded brother around a lot more often than the regular standard one, but here we have the S Gundam, the Master Grade version. And this is from Gundam Sentinel, which was a manga, not really a manga, sort of like a novel that was in a Model Graphics hobby magazine, I believe, a long time ago. This was one of Hajime Kotoki's very first Gundam designs, and in my opinion, it's probably still one of his best. And it kind of still holds a bit of a cult following amongst Gunpla modelers. So a lot of people tend to seek out the very few kits that tend to exist for this kit, for this particular Gundam here. Fun fact here, this Gundam, the S in the name of this Gundam doesn't actually stand for Sentinel. It actually stands for Supreme, or Superior in some cases. It's also unofficially known as the Iota Gundam by the developer of Annenheim Electronics, but as this kit was part of the Zeta Zeta series of Gundams that Anaheim was working on, the Zeta project kit. And I guess you could almost say that this kit is almost like a massive hybrid between the original Zeta Gundam and the ZZ Gundam in some ways. So this may be like the ultimate final incarnation result of the Zeta project. But anyway, let's get on to the actual kit here, which is what you want to see here. So here it is right here. As you can see here, he is quite big. He's actually too big for my photo booth tent here, so I had to resort to using my cardboard backing here again. And I do have him up on a action base, which was not easy to do. This kit came out back in 2002, and this was long before action bases were around, so I had to jury rig something up for taking photos and for this review here. As you can see, I kind of have the action base jammed up underneath his tail binder, which seems to be the only spot where I can stick something, as I can't use the forked prongs, as they don't really fit on the bottom of this guy here. So, but it seems to hold up pretty well this way here, so that's the way he's going to be here. So let's get right down to it and talk about the details about this kit here. He's pretty big, as you can see here, and he has a lot of detail overall here. Lots of panel lines all over it. And certainly a lot of complex look to it here. It's really nicely detailed for an older kit from the time this came from. But it does come with some of the obvious older kit issues that you would probably expect from the time. There's a lot of obvious seam lines on some parts of this kit here, especially along the rifle, and there's a few other spots like these little binders here. There's a seam line there, and there's a seam line that runs down the tail binder here. Also, a lot of this kit, the dark plastic on this kit here is really prone to whitening. So if you do get this kit, you're going to have to be like extra careful clipping the nubs off of this here, because especially with the inner frame. The inner frame is actually an ABS frame. So again, you have to treat that with care, because again, if whitening and bad nubs tends to bother you, then that's just something you're going to have to take care of to try and avoid as much as you can on this kit here. Simply because part of it's just an older kit here, and that's just something you gotta be aware of. The other thing, kind of detail-wise, you kind of gotta be aware of all this red on the fins that is on this kit. They give you stickers for that. They give you some nice, big, ugly foil stickers for that. When you initially get the kit, you can put them on. They'll probably stay on fairly well. But I've had my kit for, gosh, a pretty long time, many years. And he's been in storage, and when I took him out of storage, a lot of those stickers were peeling off. So I decided, since I had some paint, I decided to take those off and go ahead and paint the red on the fins as best I could here. I actually masked those off and just hand painted those with some red paint, and it turned out okay. So if you don't want to deal with the stickers, you can always paint it. It's not really that hard to do. He does come with a combination of stickers and dry transfers. Lots of little nice dry transfer stickers. These ones on the shoulders are dry transfers. They're kind of all throughout the kit. I know these ones on the fins are stickers. This is dry transfer here. So, I mean, there's a lot on here, but it's not really overwhelming. I mean, there are some couple spots you would also have to paint on the back of this tail binders. There's like 2 green sensors, cameras on the tail binder you would have to paint, including one on the very end there if you really do want to do that here. But everything else is pretty well depicted properly in the colors that it should be. So, I mean, if you don't want to paint anything, you really don't have to worry about too much on this kit, except for maybe the red on these fins here, which again you just get a big sticker for, which I'm not always in favor of big stickers like that. But I mean, it's up to you. Probably the only other thing is I know you do get a clear piece for a sensor on the beam smart gun. They don't give you any sort of colored piece for that, so you will probably have to paint that or figure something out or put something behind it to make it look right. So detail wise, this gets an 8 out of 10 from me. So I mean, it's not bad. I mean, it is pretty good looking straight out of the box here, but I mean, there are a lot of people who paint this sort of kit, and they can make it look like 10 times better really easily. So let's get to articulation, which is a pretty interesting topic when it comes to this kit. So let me show you how well I can probably depict this for you here. Let me stop him here. Right now he's kind of on my action base, so it's going to be a little tricky to try and demonstrate this for you here. So what I'll try and do is zoom in a little bit so I can get in a little closer here. So we can start at the top of the head here. The head actually has a pretty decent range of motion here. You can kind of get him to turn about that far, but again, the head's pretty wide, so you're not going to go all the way around here. But he can look up a little bit, look down a little bit, about so like that. There is no waist articulation in this guy at all, so I'm not even going to bother trying to show you that. Cockpit hatch will open up here. This is just the basic one here. There's really nothing inside of here to see, so I'm not going to open that up. Well, this is as far as it opens, but I'm not going to move the camera or the kit here because there's really nothing to see under there. The arms, they can move around like so here. There actually is just a very little bit of a clavicle joint on this guy. It's a little hard to show here, but he can move back and forth like that a little bit. So even for an older kid, he's actually got some shoulder range on him. Arms, they can move around. It's very much like the arms on the Zeta Plus Gundam, but they are not as tight, thankfully. And the hands are just the typical 3-finger hands that you see on all the older master grades here. But it's got a good range of motion with its arms, so not really any complaints there. This little piece here can move around a little bit here if you want to get it out of the way a little bit. These wing binders, they're kind of on ball joints, so they can move around like so here. Turn around like that. This is mainly for transformation though, so you really don't have to mess with that too much. Moving on down to the legs here. Not a whole lot in the legs. I'm going to work with this leg. This one's a little easier to work with here. As you can see, there are things attached to the upper legs here. The beam smart gun is actually attached to the upper leg over here, so if I try to move this, the smart gun's going to move around with it. There's kind of a downside here. On this side, we have this little, I don't know which one to call it. This is actually it's another power connector for the beam smart gun that's attached to the hip here. It kind of gets in the way sometimes, but you can just kind of flip it out of the way. Now this king can swing its leg all the way forward like that. Back a little bit before it hits the back skirt here. And it will not do the splits. It will only come out about that far. So it can come in a little bit, but this is as far as it's going to go like that here. The knee joint, it's not 90 degrees. Well, it actually is exactly 90 degrees if you look at it that way. Maybe just a little bit less. It's a hair less here, but it's okay for what it is. So this front piece can move around like so, and down to the foot here. The feet are not really good on this kit. From when I was trying to pose it, they're not exactly flat. I don't know if you can tell right there. And I have tried and taken these apart to try and see if they can get flat, but they can't, so you're just going to have to kind of deal with that. The ankle joint here is extremely tight. There is a screw in there. In fact, there are screws all throughout the frame on this kit, by the way. But there is a screw in there kind of holding the ankle joint together, but even loosening that up, it doesn't really help too much. It'll bend back and forth pretty well, but if you're trying to bend it side to side, it's not gonna bend side to side at all. And it'll rotate a little bit like that, but since there's really not much back here, I do find that this kit has a tough time standing up. Obviously, this is not the Extra S Gundam, which cannot stand at all, but and you can kind of get this guy to stand if you play around with it long enough here. The little back beam cannons don't really move around that much here. They can go side to side like that, but as for going back and forth, they really can't. Just kind of the way they're oriented, they're not going to move that much. So, overall, this guy doesn't really have a huge range of articulation. He's got more articulation in the arms than really any place else on the body. The legs are just, they're about subpar, I would say. So, he's kind of like a borderline brick kit, if you want to think of it that way. He's got, I mean, he can kind of stand if you fiddle around with him long enough, but he is really, really top heavy, so you're just going to have to kind of be aware of that. And unfortunately, this kit does not come with a stand, so you're going to have to kind of do what I do here and kind of figure out something to do with an action base on him. So he gets a 5 out of 10 on articulation from me, so like I said, it's a borderline brick kit. That's kind of what you expect from this. Getting on to extras here. There's really not a whole lot of extras with this guy. You do obviously get the beam smart gun here, which is a really nice weapon here. Let me actually take it off of here. It's a really nice weapon. I really do like the look and design of it here. As you can see right there, a better look at what I did here. I did stick a green piece of paper behind the clear lens to try and give you the lens effect there. You don't get any sort of green sticker for this or anything. It's just a clear piece, so you'll have to figure out something for that. Additionally, I think in some cases you are supposed to paint something on the sensor on here, but I never bothered to do that. But it's a really nice looking weapon. It can kind of hold it okay. There's no peg on here, but since this is affixed to the hip, you're not gonna worry about this falling off the kit or anything. It becomes a lot more stable when you stick the other power connector onto this here. See, there are 2 ball joints on the bottom here. This one is for the right side hip. This one is from the left side hip here. So he can easily hold it like this with no problem here, like that. So, and it's a pretty big weapon. It's just as tall as the Gundam itself here. So it's pretty nice here. Only other accessories you really get here are the beam sabers, and they are right here in the knee armor. See if I can grab one here. They just stick right out like that, and you just grab it. And you get blue beam sabers here, just like with the Zeta Plus kit. Just like that here, and he can hold them pretty well here. No real problem holding these. So you can just stick them in the hand like that, fine, and you get, of course, 2 beam sabers like that. Now, this guy does come with a core fighter. The core fighter is actually currently inside the kit right now, but you do get this secondary thing here, which is not called the core fighter. This is called the G core. And the interesting thing about the S Gundam is that it actually has 3 cockpits in the mobile suit. There's one in the core fighter. You got a separate one for this little red piece here, which you can see here. You can see in the light there, there are 2 pilot figures right there, one for this piece here and one for that. And there is another one in this bottom section here. Right so, and the little patch likes to fall off. But so you got 1, 2, 3 pilots on this thing. Now, from what I understand from the original story, the S Gundam never actually had 3 pilots in it at the same time. It only had its main pilot, which was Rio Roots, and it was co-operated by a AI system called Alice, and that's pretty much what took the place of the other 2 pilots in the S Gundam. So it never actually had 3 pilots in it at the same time. That was just something interesting. I mean, it would have been interesting to see a Gundam piloted by 3 people at the same time, but I mean, it just really hasn't happened yet. Besides that, actually, yeah, there really isn't anything else with this kit here. Now, this, I do want to say something. There actually is a different configuration for the S Gundam that actually has some hip-mounted beam cannons on it. Unfortunately, they do not give you the optional parts for this here. I do know on the high-grade Universal Century version of the S Gundam, they do give you the optional parts for that. It's kind of disappointing that Bandai did not include those parts with this kit. It would have been nice to have the option to have it that way, but as far as I'm aware, only the Extra S version, the much bigger, fully upgraded version of this kit, actually has those beam cannons on it. So if you kind of want that configuration of the S Gundam, you would have to shell out the extra cash for that and not use the Extra S components, I guess. I'm not sure why you would do that, but you can. But yeah. So extras gets a 6 out of 10 from me. So they're okay extras, but like I said, there's not really much to work with here, and it would have been nice to have those extra beam cannons just as an extra option. Yeah, so. Alright, so before I get into value here, let me talk a little bit about the transformation of this guy, which is probably what you're really interested in about it. To put it simply, this Master Grade is probably one of the more complicated and somewhat frustrating transforming kits around. It does transform fully, just as Hajime Kotoki designed it to. In fact, when you're kind of building this thing and transforming and everything, you kind of almost think that this kit is a Verkaw kit. It almost borderline is. This came out 2 months before the first Verkaw kit, the Gundam Verkaw, came out. And I mean, if the S Gundam came out today, it would most assuredly be a Verkaw kit. It kind of feels like one, with the amount of detail and kind of brickishness to it. It kind of feels like one. Getting back to transformation here, this guy splits into 3 components pretty much. You have your top half, which kind of goes into the G attacker. That's the more difficult transformation to deal with here, as the tail binder kind of has to flip all the way around underneath the kit, up and around, and there are like 2 or 3 different swivel hinges on the back you kind of have to work out, and the directions in the kit don't really make it very clear what you're supposed to be doing. So the only way I was able to do it is I had to practice it several times. And I actually kind of broke a piece on the back, but it's not really a big deal because it still kind of stays together. But the arms themselves are really neat though. Is it just kind of, the outside portions just kind of slide apart, and then the arms just slide right into the outside arm piece, and it just kind of fold up and tuck in and just hide completely into it. It's really kind of clever the way it's designed, and it's really interesting. And the head just kind of pops down inside the chest, kind of the same way as the Zeta Gundam does, so it's not really anything different there. Bottom half of the kit, it's not really as hard to transform. I'd probably say the only thing that's kind of hard to deal with is kind of taking the legs apart. You kind of have to take the front shin, actually comes out and slides down and sticks over the foot, which is really neat, but it's a little tricky to do sometimes. The back skirt armor actually flips up on top of where the core fighter used to attach to, and kind of fills the gap there, and the wings just kind of open up. The beam smart gun attaches to this mode and just kind of swings up underneath the crotch and just sort of plugs into the bottom of it, and is held in place pretty well here. And that forms your bottom half, which is called the G bumper. Pretty neat. As for getting them up on an action base, again, same problem. There's really no adapters for this because this was before action bases. I was able to kind of get it onto an action base. Overall, the transformation, again, as I said, is really complex, and if you don't like transformations, you might not really like dealing with this. Admittedly, I hear the EXS is even more difficult to deal with, so you probably have to pick and choose. I do want to say that a lot of the dark ABS plastic on this kit, as you're transforming and moving things around and taking all these little connecting tabs out and everything on it, it is prone to whitening and stress marks, so you kind of have to be aware of that. So take a little bit of care. I've already broken a couple tabs on this thing because it's so old and I've transformed it so many times here. You're just going to have to be careful about that sort of thing. Moving on beyond that, we got the value of the kit here. Like I said, this kit came out in 2002, specifically October of 2002, and it retails for 6,000 yen, which is about $54 today. The only alternatives to this are the high grade Universal Century kit, which came out in 2001, and that goes for 1,800 yen. It is a completely non-transformable kit from what I've seen. It's not even a part swapper. You can't even try to do anything like that with it. So if you just want a S Gundam that's just in mobile suit mode, well, there's the kit for you. You're gonna have to do some painting on it though. There is an EX model of the G Attacker. That goes for a rather expensive 3,000 yen for something that is only one color plastic. Probably not worth buying. So really, there isn't a whole lot of choices when it comes to models of the S Gundam. So really, still the Master Grade is probably still the best choice. Even though you'll have to deal with the frustrating transformation on it. I mean, you don't have to transform it. You could just leave it the way it is. So, but still, it's kind of it's an older kit, but it is kind of expensive for an older kit, considering all you're getting here. So, but it's still a fair value, I'd say. So I give it a 7 out of 10. So it's an okay value. Some people will probably be really into it and probably think the price is worth it. If you don't want to deal with anything on this, then the price may not be worth it to you. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. So the Master Grade S Gundam at the end of this gets a total of 26 out of 40, which puts it into the above average category of Gunpla kits here. So the big pros here, it's got some really nice detail to it. It really looks good out of the box. Cons is that it's kind of hard to get an action base on this thing. It really does need a stand. And the transformation is kind of a hassle on this. It really is. So you don't really have to deal with that. I guess before I wrap this up, you kind of want to do a couple of size comparisons here, because he is kind of a big Gundam. It is one of the bigger Gundam kits here. So I'm going to grab the regular Gundam. This is the Master Grade Origin Gundam. So as you can probably see here, the Gundam comes up to about where the red cockpit piece is on this guy. So you can kind of get an idea how big this guy is. Only other comparison I make to another big kit is the big Sazabi here, which he's actually about the same size as V Sazabi, although V Sazabi is obviously a lot more chunkier, as you can see here. So, but that just kind of gives you an idea how big this guy is, even though he's not in his Extra S mode. The Extra S Gundam is particularly popular amongst a lot of people here. It's a hard to find kit at times. So if you don't want to deal with all the extra stuff that comes with the Extra S, which I don't know, it seems like a lot of people do, there's always a regular Master Grade S Gundam, which is this kit here. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that review, found it informative. If you liked the review, leave a like. If you have any questions or comments, just leave a comment below. I'm happy to hear them. And be sure to subscribe, because more stuff is always coming. Transformation May is pretty much about over with here. I'm going to try to squeeze in one more kit for this month. Going to try here. If I can't, it'll be next month probably. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the review, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.